equal opportunities and to allow young leaders to be supported each year to go further. So for today's session, I'll be in conversation with Ife Durosinmi-Etti. Ife is an author, an entrepreneur and young global leader with over 10 years of management and leadership experience working in fashion, marketing, manufacturing industries. She holds a first degree in biochemistry and an MBA in global business, and she is the founder of Herconomy. She was recently appointed as a youth advisory group member for Solutions for Youth Employment, a global coalition formed by the World Bank. Welcome, Ife.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm really, really excited to be here.
Great. So for the next 45 minutes, we'll be in conversation. I'll then open up the floor for questions. So please do feel free to ask any questions, whether it's on Zoom, whether it's on YouTube or LinkedIn, and I will endeavor to put them towards Ife. So we'll have about 15 minutes on the end to ask anything. So anything that might come up during the discussion that you want to ask, or anything that you might want to share with us, please do feel free to put those questions to us. So Ife, I want to get started. You have quite a varied career. So from fashion to manufacturing, you also have a background in biochemistry. So can you tell us a bit about how you started and what led you to where you are now?
Okay, fantastic. I really, really like that question because it takes me into why we should never be stuck in what we studied and actually go for what actually makes your belly, fill up with butterflies. So I would say I got into university quite early. So at that point in time, I was 15 and I didn't necessarily know what I wanted to do with my career. I just knew that I wanted to go to school. So I studied biochemistry, and in the process, we had to do like an internship. So I did my internship with May and Baker, which is one of the most prominent pharmaceutical companies in the country. And I didn't necessarily really enjoy it. I realized that I was more back end. I didn't necessarily like being in my lab coats. I didn't really buy into what it was. So from then on, which was my third year, I already knew that I didn't want to practice in that line of medicine. I didn't want to do medicine, like I didn't want to start making medicine or work in that industry anyway. So I started thinking more deeply, and at this point I was already about 18, so I was a little bit more mature. So I started thinking about what I could do after that. And coincidentally, I got the opportunity to work at a bank. So I worked at Standard Chartered Bank. That was my first stint in anything banking. And I realized that I actually really enjoyed it. I liked the fact that I was relating more with customers. I could, come up with solutions for different issues that would come up on a day-to-day. Every day was different than the day before. So I realized that, that was more interesting. So I worked there for a year and a bit, and I decided to go and do my MBA. I got to the UK. Actually, I got to London and I started working. And then after some time, I realized that if I wanted to continue in the line of business or anything like commercial related, I needed to do a course or a degree that could, help me fit into that line of work. And I decided to do an MBA. And I really, really enjoyed it.
So after that MBA, you then moved back to Nigeria. I think it was in 2012.
Yes.
How did that experience studying abroad influence, I guess, the work that you're doing now?
So from the minute I was there, I already knew I was going to move back to Nigeria. So I started looking for jobs within the space that I wanted to work in, which was, I knew that I liked relating with people. I liked communications. I liked marketing. So I started looking for things within that sphere. And I was also looking for a job within banking. So whichever one came first, but my role within whatever sector I picked there was a common line of denominator, which was like marketing and communications, which was where my own core strength, showed forth. Working in the UK, or working and also studying in the UK, helps me in terms of like my marketing expertise. It also helps me also learn that customer service is like the bane of any business. So I worked in Arcadia Group and I saw the importance of how they manage their customers, and no matter what happened to the customer that made the customer upset, but because of the way they treated the customer, the customer always came back. So I realized a lot of like real life examples. I got a lot of real life examples of how it was to run a business. And Arcadia Group was a startup that started with one man, and then, you know, grew to so many. They had a lot of brands under them. So I knew that, you know, that was something that I wanted to do. I wanted to do something similar to be able to impact the lives of people, create employment, and all of that. So I got that experience, and I got into Nigeria, and I worked in the corporate comms department and my role there was like corporate social responsibility and sustainability, which is more about caring for people, caring for the planet, you know, impacting the lives of people. So I handle a lot of like educational projects, different projects that could literally impact the lives of people. And I will start that project from start to finish, which further informed my career today. So eventually I saw how something so little could literally transform a whole generation. Like instead of it to say, oh, this $5,000 or this 500,000 naira can, instead of you just giving it away to somebody who wouldn't necessarily appreciate it, you can actually give that money to somebody in the line of either business or their career, and you see how that money would transform their life. You see how it will create a ripple effect of not only their own immediate families, but they would also create employment, you know, no matter how small. So I knew that later down the line, I would want to have my own business, and I want an impactful business that can actually transform not just Nigeria, but Africa as a whole. So that's what got me into this whole space. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So as an advocate for women and children, could you tell us a bit more about Parliamo Bambino, so the company that you created to help provide furniture for young children?
So when I had my daughter, I had her in the UK, and I decided to buy all the furniture and everything that we needed at the time, because that was the norm. That was the only thing, you know, that I knew to do at the time, because in Nigeria, we didn't necessarily have anybody producing local furniture. So I ordered the things in, my friends also ordered them in, and I realized when I go back to Nigeria, everything was contraband, and we couldn't necessarily like what I had to pay to actually clear it eventually, because you have to pay some fees, like customs fees, because you're bringing in stuff that is not necessarily even allowed. So it was extremely expensive, even more expensive than the actual items that I had bought. That was what got me into, you know, doing more research to say, okay, how have other moms been doing it? I know that there are a lot of my friends were giving birth at the time, and I didn't necessarily want them to go through what I had been through. So I decided to start producing furniture locally for children. And there's a big difference between making furniture for children and making furniture for adults, because for children, everything needs to be safe. You know, the paints they're using, all of those things, you can't just use regular paints that, you know, you would use to probably produce something for an adult, because like children, they would bite on the item and stuff like that, and it can eventually choke them. So we did all of that research and decided, you know what, let's help, you know, the women within this sphere. Let's help women, you know, get good furniture that can actually help their children improve their lives. They can also save money. And that's how we decided to start. From that, we started getting a lot of grants for the business, because people and organizations saw the impact of, you know, producing locally and how we could potentially help, you know, create, you know, further employment and all of that in Nigeria. Then more people started asking us how we started getting into those grants, and global opportunities. And that was how I decided to write my book. So I wrote my book, and the book eventually led to us creating a community, because a lot more people wanted to know about new opportunities that came up and how to apply for them or tap into those opportunities. And that's how we then created the community, which now pivoted to now, you know, creating a financial services company that can potentially help women. So look, it has actually evolved, but the mission is still the same, which is obviously to help women but now we're doing it through financial services because we know that without like women's economic power, women would not necessarily be empowered. They'll lose out on, you know, things like getting access to credits that can help them, you know, grow their businesses. They would also not be able to take or have the choice for like things like health insurance that can help either them or their families. So the mission, like I said, is the same, but now we're doing it differently through financial services.
So I want to just take a step back. Initially, when you started this company, you said that you were given grants. For someone who might be starting a business or doing something similar or something completely different, what advice would you give to them to be able to go out and look for those grants in the first place?
First, I'll always tell people when you're looking for a grant, you should first be doing a business that is actually scalable and can actually potentially change the lives of a large group of people. So a lot of people think that, you know, because they like something, like everybody's going to buy into that idea without thinking about the overall impact of that particular idea. So I tell people, ensure that your business or whatever you're doing is actually in line with Sustainable Development Goals, because the UN has already done research on some of the global issues that currently are in the world, right? So if they've done that research, why are you going to come up with another business that is not necessarily really in line? Because that means you're probably going to deal with a smaller subsector of people, which means that funding is not necessarily going to flow to that line of work, and you would be stuck with literally maybe just family and friends, and that cannot actually get you to scale or actually give you real profit. And that was one of the issues that I actually faced with one of the businesses that I had started, even though it was a fantastic business idea. But in terms of like affordability, because when you start producing furniture locally and people know that you're producing locally, they want the price to also reflect that you're producing locally, which means that it should be cheaper. But in the long run, that was not the case. So when you look at things vis-a-vis, you know, the problem, the solution, and the people that are actually going to afford it, everything has to make sense and everything needs to tie. Yeah. So it's important for people to know that first, the business has to be solving a real problem. Then they need to join communities that will actually get all of this information. Because once you're part of a community that is working towards the same goal, you would get information quicker than other people who are not necessarily part of any community. So when you join these communities, you get first-hand information. There are grants that have come to us as a company just because we're part of a community. For example, during COVID-19, Facebook was giving out grants to businesses that had suffered from COVID. And not only did they bring the opportunity to us as a company that had a plethora of different female entrepreneurs, they also came to do like a session teaching people actually how to apply. But if they were not part of the community, they wouldn't have that information, they wouldn't get that training. And so many people were able to tap into that opportunity. So it's important for you to be part of a community. Then you now need to know how to apply professionally. I see so many people who have fantastic businesses, but they don't necessarily know how to tell that story in a compelling way that actually showcases the problem that they're actually trying to solve. So when you learn how, and that was the reason why I actually wrote my book, when you learn, you know, the lingo, how to present yourself professionally, then it becomes easier. Once you get one, the second one gets easier. And you need to know that a lot of people are competing for the same resources. So because you don't get this particular grant doesn't mean that your business is not compelling enough. You have to keep trying. It's like almost like a 1 in 10 or 1 in 20 or 1 in 100 application that you would actually get through, because it is highly competitive and there are limited resources. So you need to make sure that your hands are everywhere, your eyes and ears are everywhere. You're collaborating with people, you're talking to other people in the industry so that you get, you know, first-hand information. Yeah.
And what advice would you give to someone to be able to join a community? They might not know how to go about doing that.
I think it's important because a lot of communities have websites. So depending on what or the industry that you're in, you need to do that research for yourself and see what is important to you. What are you trying to achieve? You know, some people have communities that are mainly for lawyers. So if you're a lawyer and you're trying to tap into different opportunities, you have to first join the community that has all the other lawyers in the community. Then if you also want to do other things like access a grant and stuff, you have to find the community that is focused on grants. There are communities of digital nomads, for example. If you're somebody who loves to travel, you should just type in on Google one day, how do I find a community of other people that also like to travel? You will come up with different, or Google or would come up with different different examples of organizations, and then you begin to fizzle out and choose the one that can work for you. Some might be just for women, some might be a mixed group, some might be a community that only exists in Africa, another one can be a global community. You pick the one that you want. So people have different interests, and these communities are not necessarily only for your business. So I have a friend who loves to play golf, but he works in an organization, right? In a credible organization. So with this golf community, they all travel together. There's so many other business transactions that can come on in that community just because they're part of the community. So depending on the interest and the things that you like to do, you need to research it and just know that you can actually be part of different diverse communities. The most important thing to do is understand that you also have to provide value for the whatever community that you're part of, so that you're not just somebody who is just there to take. You also have to find ways to also provide value in the communities that you join eventually.
Now, you've been recognised by the Tony Elumelu Foundation and other prestigious organisations. What advice do you have for entrepreneurs looking to make a social impact with their startups?
Fantastic. I would say just apply. I remember my dad calling me in 2015. He had just seen the first announcement of the people who had gotten into the Tony Elumelu Entrepreneurship Program, but he thought it was just starting out. So he called me and said, "Oh my gosh, Ife, this is a fantastic opportunity. I think you would be selected if you apply." So I checked it out and I saw that, oh my gosh, this was the announcement. So people already applied like months before and all of that. So it had closed. But I had it at the back of my mind that next year I would apply, since I had done the research and I had seen that it was a yearly program. So the next year I went prepared. I applied, I spoke to some people who had already been chosen or selected in the year before, and I made sure that I did a very good application, and I eventually got in. So I think and a lot of people at the time told me things like, "Oh, what will $5,000 do for your business? It's really small, blah blah blah." And I told them, I said, it's not just about the money, it's also about the access to network, access to different opportunities and different entrepreneurs that are Africa wide, right? You're not only dealing with entrepreneurs in Nigeria, you're dealing with entrepreneurs across Africa. And I was able to get the value. So when I wrote my book, eventually, I had a book tour in different countries in Africa. And it was the entrepreneurs that were part of the Tony Elumelu Entrepreneurship Program that helped me to put it up. But if I didn't have that network from the Tony Elumelu Entrepreneurship Program, it would have been a lot harder for me to get the people to attend the book tour, or to even impact the lives of people that were there. There were people who were there that couldn't even look at me. They hadn't been exposed to that kind of training. They were covering their eyes when they were talking to me. So you'd realize how much value you can bring to the lives of people once you can collaborate with other people. And I got so many other opportunities from the Tony Elumelu Entrepreneurship Program. For example, the only reason why I was able to work with the World Bank as a youth advisory group member was an opportunity that actually came to the community, which is the Tony Elumelu Entrepreneurship Alumni Community. They sent us an email, and like every other person, I also applied and selected 2 of us from the program. So you can just imagine, if I wasn't part of that community, I wouldn't have access to that opportunity that I'm still part of till today, even though I got into the Tony Elumelu Program in 2016. So I tell people it's important for you to be able to apply and just trust, put in your best, just continue applying, and you get the ripple effect of it. But when you don't apply, nobody sees you, nobody knows what you're doing. This program came with so much visibility. Eventually I won another pitch competition from the program. I went with them to Egypt for on a trade mission to introduce my business at the time to that country. So there's so many opportunities that come out of these things, and if you don't put yourself at the forefront, or be in a way, or be visible in a way that people can call your names in the rooms that you are not, then you're just wasting your time. You're literally just winking in the dark. So as an entrepreneur, you have to be very visible. People need to be able to Google you and see your footprint, see the things that you've done, see that you've sustained and being consistent since in whatever thing that you've decided to do. So that's why I tell people visibility is very, very important as an entrepreneur. I used to be very, very shy. I think I'm still very shy, but I have to come out for my business. I have to promote it. I'm my number one promoter, supporter. And if I'm not confident enough to do it, nobody is going to be able to invest in me or actually believe in what I'm saying or be confident enough to know that I can actually do what I say that I'm going to do.
So you mentioned being shy, even though that's not how you seem at all. But what steps have you taken to be able to push yourself out of your comfort zone and do the work that you do?
I just decided that, I don't have any backup. I told myself, hey, you don't have any backup. Nobody's coming to save you. So you have to be confident. You have to, like sometimes when I'm talking, even till now, I'll stamp my leg on the floor because I'm like, no, you cannot be shy. You cannot be shaking. Or even if you're shaking, nobody can see that you're shaking, right? So I just have to tell myself that, you have to push yourself. I also spoke to different people and I listened to their own perspective. So when you listen to people like Oprah Winfrey and stuff, they tell you that they're still shy, but they do it anyway. So who am I not to be shy? This is somebody that has been talking for over 40 years and she's still shy. So, it's the same natural feeling, no matter what, when you're talking to people or a group of people that maybe you've never spoken to before, or even the ones you've spoken to, when you feel like you're being judged by what they're judging you by what you're saying, you feel like you have to, say the best things or know everything. No, you can come as yourself. Always prepare, obviously, so that you're not just sounding like, somebody who's just saying something that, hasn't been researched properly, because other people read, you're not the only one in the world, but you have to always, be prepared. And once you've prepared and you've done your best, just speak. Eventually it gets better. The shaky parts, settles after some time. And once you keep doing it over and over and over again, it looks like, you've gotten a hang of it. So yeah, continue to prepare.
Preparation is key.
Yeah.
So now elaborate on your role as a global shaper of the World Economic Forum.
Okay. So I for someone that worked in corporate social responsibility for a couple of years, it was like very natural to me. So I had seen the opportunity online for people who want to impact their world. And I was like, okay, I want to be part of this community. I want to be part of people who are shaping their community, shaping their nation. And I decided to apply for it. And it was very natural for me, or a natural progression for what I had already been doing at Nigerian Breweries, which is the operating company of Heineken in Nigeria. I just wanted to be part of a group where I could see and network and meet other people who had the same mindset as I did. So as we joined, we came up with different projects that we thought, could help our communities, in their communities. I came up with a program called Startup Dome, and this was a project that was very dear to my heart, where we were like training and mentoring other young entrepreneurs or to be entrepreneurs, people who wanted to get into that space. We did a lot of trainings for them. There are also other projects that people came up with, and we all always used to come together. We had a partnership with HP at the time, where we'll train, do some like digital literacy trainings in different communities, and we'll donate a laptop to either the school or the library. So it's basically just doing or shaping different communities that you're part of. So we're part of the global shapers community, but our core responsibility is to the states that you actually apply and you're a part of. So we did a lot of community projects within Lagos State.
Yeah. So you mentioned Startup Dome, and I'm interested to find out, how do you as an entrepreneur approach bridging the gender gap in entrepreneurship through social economic empowerment programs such as Startup Dome?
So since then, I've actually come up with different projects and initiatives that help to bridge the gender gap. And Herconomy, for one, is at the forefront of bridging that gender gap. And one of the ways that we do it is through access to financial services. So currently in Nigeria today, over 50% of women don't have access to formal financial accounts. And the fact that they don't have access to formal financial accounts means that they're excluded from a lot of opportunities. Like I said earlier, access to credit. This also limits them in, scaling their businesses. They're literally living from mouth to mouth or day to day. They're not necessarily thinking about investing their money, that money. A lot of them are keeping the money that they make from their day-to-day trade under the pillows, so their money or their wealth is not growing. But with the introduction of Herconomy into the society, we're not only giving them this platform where they can actually automate their savings, they're also generating interest on their savings, and we're also teaching them financial literacy. And this is what actually separates person A from person B, and even men and women. So if you even take, for instance, women who are actually educated, who actually went to school, some of them even have MBAs, but when you see them in the workplace and they have the same role as men, so this is even for the women who are not necessarily even secluded, you would find that the men take more risk and they even invest more. And the difference when you speak to them is financial literacy. They understand the impact and the risks that come with investment, and they take that risk. But with women, we don't want to take any loan, we don't want to take any risk. We're sitting in our small corners and just saying, okay, let me just be looking at this money in my bank account. They're not necessarily thinking about how they're going to necessarily grow their wealth. But when you now start educating them and giving them examples of people who have actually taken this risk and have actually made money from taking those risks, they're more inclined to wanting to take that risk, and they take wealth management a little bit more seriously, which is what we're doing as a company, just giving them that platform where they can actually automate and literally grow their wealth. Yeah.
So when did you start Herconomy? How long has it been running for?
So we first launched as a community in 2018, which was mainly just a community, just giving women the access to collaborate, network, and get access to grants and different opportunities. But we pivoted to financial services in 2022. And coincidentally, today we're actually 2 years. So we actually launched our app April 11 in 2022. And since then, we've been able to provide financial services to over 70-something thousand women, giving them access to automated savings or high-yield savings accounts, and also giving them a way to also save money on the things that they need on a day-to-day. So we have partnerships with over 100 different brands across Nigeria who give up to 30% discounts on different products and services that women need on a day-to-day. For example, women, most of the time is women going to the pharmacy. We have hospitals on there, we have different spas on there, we have different clothing or fashion brands on there. So we have a plethora of different brands, even a grocery store is also on there. So we have like different brands that you're also saving as you spend, while you're also earning the high interest on your savings with us.
So from your initial idea, from transforming what you were doing before to Herconomy, you mentioned now that you've impacted around 70,000 people. How were you able from the start to where you are now to be able to reach that many people?
So we were able to leverage online and offline channels. So we go to different communities, go and train these women, and also we do a lot of like virtual sessions. So we're able to even reach even more people, because it's difficult to bring like thousands and thousands of people into a space. So we have the opportunity to do that online and offline, and that's the only way we've been able to scale.
And initially, to be able to start doing it, you were able to get some funding or some sponsorship and grants to be able to go out and meet those women.
So when we first started out, it was mainly my own funds. So it was something that I personally believed in. So we're making money from other places or some of the products that we had, and we just started going out. We started giving out grants from our own pocket or our own profit. And eventually organizations and individuals saw that we're creating impact. We saw businesses from zero literally transformed. There was a business in particular who didn't necessarily have any savings at all to today having over 27 distributors across Africa. So it was just literally going, step by step, doing things in little bits. And, they say little drops of water make a tiny ocean. So eventually we're able to raise some funding in 2021 and 2022. And we've been able to literally create our own financial technology platform and been able to market in the way that we could with the resources that we had.
Now, as a mentor for programs like the Young African Leadership Initiative, what are some key lessons that you've learned about leadership and mentorship?
I think leadership is a huge responsibility. And I think the responsibility of leaders is to actually even create more leaders, not necessarily creating more followers. So I think the difficult part of being a leader is the responsibility that comes from being a leader. So always being on your best behavior, always, but you're a human being as well. But because people put you on that pedestal, it's even more challenging for you as a person to just, still try to, keep things together. I think those are some of the difficult things about being a leader. But some of the things that I've learned as a leader is to delegate more and trust and let people make their mistakes. It's very difficult for you to just, something that you've been doing. And when you're small, it's easier for you to have a relationship with everybody in your team. You know how everybody's feeling at every point in time. But as the team begins to grow, it's more difficult for you to trust and actually delegate to somebody that you don't have that personal relationship with, and the person has not really felt you, so the person doesn't really know how you like to do your thing. So being a leader, I've had to actually learn from other leaders and particularly other founders who have gone on this walk that I'm going on. So I prefer to even talk to younger people who are actually tech founders, because they recently just, maybe they are just a step ahead. So they've literally just passed the phase that I'm currently going through. So they have a better perspective and better understanding of what I would need, as opposed to going to like bigger and, even more successful people. So I found favor and strength in speaking to like peers, and just letting them tell me how they were able to navigate some of the challenges that they've been through. As a founder and leader of the Herconomy pack, different things. One of the challenges that I've faced is even managing people. We're expanding. We're now, over 20 people on the team, and just, managing them, making sure that their pulse is still good. They're still excited about working and they still believe in the mission, has obviously been a challenge. So like I said, I've had to like get like coaches, to just teach me how to even handle different things. I found myself asking somebody the other day that, what's your day-to-day like? Another founder, I'm like, what's your day-to-day like? Do you get into the office and there's one big dashboard that you're looking at to like monitor your numbers? Who helps you build out that dashboard? What are some of the things that I should be looking at? I know that personally in my own company, I'm more concerned about things like our assets under management and, our numbers growing, our users growing. Those are the most important metrics to me. But there are also more important things that you should be looking at as the founder. The human resources part. Are your people happy? Has somebody been on a roll for a long time and this person getting, disgruntled? There are different things that you look at. So I started asking, like, sometimes I feel like I'm doing a lot, and other times I feel like I'm not doing anything at all. Is this normal? Is that how you're also feeling as a founder? Just understanding and getting different perspectives will make you feel better, because the pressure is actually a lot as a founder.
So you mentioned, I guess, some of the challenges there, and for you, maybe it's the management side. But I wonder, has there been any specific challenges or hurdles that you've had to overcome, whether it's in your personal life or in your career, that have helped you to help shape who you are now?
Yeah, so one challenge that I think I can remember at the top of my head is just being bold and confident in what I'm doing. So I remember when I got into the Tonumelo entrepreneurship program, the next year they had asked us to come and pitch, or to do an application, and they're going to pick the best 5 businesses to pitch on the day, and the day would have over 1,000 people present, which included other entrepreneurs, investors, and like a global audience watching you. And I applied, I was excited about it. But when the time came and I was actually selected to pitch, I chickened out. I was like, nope, I'm not doing it. I can't do it. It's difficult. And at the time I was doing my furniture business, I didn't even have a product to show, because furniture is actually big. You can't actually carry the furniture. But all the other people that were selected, they had their little knickknacks. Some had food, some had, they had all of their products. So I felt like, how am I going to be able to convince people that I'm actually creating not just regular furniture for children, but beautiful, sturdy furniture for children? So I was shaking in one corner, and then I saw a friend of mine. She was like, "Oh, let's just practice the pitch. You never know." She encouraged me. I spoke to my mentor at the time, who was there as well, and they both encouraged me, and I just did it. In fact, I laughed in between the pitch. Like, I just thought I was saying rubbish, but eventually I won that pitch, right? So it just, that moment just made me realize that you have to just get things done. So I came up with this phrase of doing it afraid, and it just showed me that there's nothing that I cannot do if I put my mind to it. And if I, like I said, prepare. So that was a huge challenge, because in fact, one of the other people pitching actually laughed at my pitch, and he was like, this one is never in a pitch, or you are not ready. So anybody who hears that to just be like, well, let me just go and sit down before I embarrass my children. They've already selected me as part of the 1,000 people that were going to be receiving the grant. I don't have to do this extra leg of being even more visible. But I did it, and I eventually won. So it just made me realize that you should always put your best foot forward. You should always try as much as possible, and you just never know what the outcome would be. Even if I didn't win, that scenario would have definitely boosted my confidence as a founder. And I eventually went on to teach other people how to pitch and get other people to also get into the program. So it's important, like an entrepreneur, you have to just continue doing it afraid. There's so many things that would happen. There's so many things that will come on to discourage you, to distract you, but you have to keep doing it afraid. You might feel the least qualified. Like, there's so many instances in my career that I felt the least qualified. Another example was there was a startup cup competition, which was like a football competition, which obviously has nothing to do with our skills as a fintech founder or anything like that. But it was just something that a VC firm had come up with to foster collaboration and networking within the ecosystem. And they asked us to come and play football. So imagine Herconomy, most of our employees are women, you know, the men there were not necessarily thinking about football, you know, things like that. And we just said, you know what, we're going to do it, and we're going to give it our best shot. It doesn't matter if we get laughed at or anything like that. So we actually went on, and we actually came third. And there were other bigger teams, more experienced teams, people who even hired professional footballers to join their teams, and we still won. So it just showed me that you have to, no matter what, you have to be the underdog. Even if you're the least qualified, you have to. There's nothing like play in, even if it's a joke, we still have to be serious about it, right? So the little things, you know, all eventually add up to boost your confidence as a founder. So you always have to give it your best shot. Whatever challenge you face, you are big enough to surmount it, and God will only give you what you can handle. So it's important for you to know that if you're facing this mountain, you would overcome. So even if in the when it's happening is difficult, like as a founder, you feel like this challenge is bigger than the one I surmounted the last time. You just have to continue believing in yourself and have trusted people around you that will continue pushing you and continue to let you know that you're on the right path, and you know you'll be fine, and they're also there to support you. So your support system is definitely very, very important.
Well, this leads me on to my next question about believing in yourself. You believed in yourself, and you applied for the Women in Africa's Young Leaders program. Mm-hmm. What was it that pushed you to apply, and how have you found the journey so far?
Fantastic. So I had already researched the program, and I had seen how diverse it was, how we had different female leaders. So all of the other programs I had applied to and gotten where like it had like men and women, but this one was particularly focused on women. So I really wanted to meet other leaders who were not necessarily only entrepreneurs. So I like the fact that I also had a lot of career people on the program, not only entrepreneurs, because most of the time I find myself in spaces with only entrepreneurs. So I thought it was a fantastic program that could give me leverage with other female leaders in other African countries. And that was what actually pushed me to apply. I saw that it came with a lot of training, mentorship, and also access to different global organizations that I've always wanted to be, you know, part of an organization that I really love. And I've, you know, been researching since. For example, KPMG is an organization that I've actually done stuff with in Nigeria before. So it was exciting to meet the team in Paris. There's also Dior. I absolutely love Dior. So it was very beautiful to go to their offices in Paris to just see how they work, how passionate they are about the empowerment, you know, of women, the things that they've done, you know, their history, how they've still been able to remain sustainable even after all these years and still be a leader, you know, in their industry. So it was just fascinating to just see and learn about, you know, their history and where they're coming from, and just meeting the other people on the program has been particularly, exciting. Yeah.
And what's it like? What's the community like amongst all the other women that are part of the program?
I still keep in touch with the women who were in the program. There was a story, we met a lady also on the program who told us her own story about, her career and how, her personal life, some things that happened in her personal life, had affected some aspects of her business, and how she went down and how she eventually, came back up. So learning all of those things and letting you know that you're not the only one going through things, all these other women, in their different countries, have been through hell and back, but they're still standing. It was just so inspiring to just learn, their stories and, how similar our stories are and how we've all been able to each overcome. There was a session in particular in Paris where we were literally all crying and we're like, oh my gosh, like we all connected. It was so beautiful. Like I didn't wake up that day. There was something that happened. It was very early in the morning. I think we all got there like 6 a.m. And, it was just so overwhelming. Like we were all really, really emotional. And there's strength in, vulnerability. So just learning and, everybody came there, we're all boss ladies, we all are all doing well in our defense fairs, but just being vulnerable just made everything, a little lighter and we could connect even more. Yeah, so it's been a bit.
Sorry, what advice would you give to someone who might be thinking about applying for the program?
Oh, I tell them all the time. I've sent it to all my friends. I've sent to them that you guys need to apply for this program. It's absolutely fantastic. Just being part of that network. I look forward to more training and networking, on the program. I look forward to even like investment opportunities that can come from the program. I met someone on the program I saw someone on the program who I had met before at another in Senegal. Who is now in Paris. And I know that some fruitful opportunities will come out of reconnecting with that person. So I think that it's very important for you to go out of your comfort zone and apply for these programs and give it your best shot. I remember when I was doing the final interview and I was in another session. I was at a workshop and I was like, oh my gosh, it's time for the interview. And I ran up to do it. And I was like, my God, I didn't have a proper presentation laid out, but I was like, I'm going to speak from my heart and talk about all of the things that I have done so far. It's my work, so I remember everything, and I can tell the story in a way that's compelling. And they love the story, and I'm happy that I was eventually selected for the program, not just because I wanted to just get stuff from the program, but because I also have the opportunity to also give back to the program and also help whoever needs, some of the skills that I've been able to acquire throughout the course of my career, and also, get back from some of the other people on the program.
What's the process like applying?
So there's a call for application and you're expected to apply. Then you receive an email to do like another video talking about your what you've been doing in your career. If you're further shortlisted after the video, then you now have to do like a panel session where you'd have to talk about your work. So a panel of judges, an independent panel, which had, I think there were like 7 or so people on my panel. So everyone would, ask you questions about your experience, what you want, what you have, what you want to do, your aspirations and things like that. And they eventually select people who are aligned, obviously, with what they're trying to do. And that was how. So it was a long process, but I'm happy that we're able to eventually come out strong. And even when we came onto the program, it was an intense week, but totally rewarding.
So you're getting, and you got a lot out of it.
Oh, yes.
I'm going to open up the floor for questions. So for the next 50 minutes, we've got some questions to ask you. I'm just going to pull them up. Give me one moment.
Okay. I can see a question.
Yes, there's a question from Nadia. And Nadia is asking about your leadership story, saying your leadership story is inspiring. Please give me more insights on acquiring funds for initiatives or business.
Okay. Thank you, Nadia, for that question. Globally, funding is extremely difficult for women. I think only about 4% or so of women globally have been able to raise over $1 million in funding for their businesses. So this, the data, everything, statistics is not on our side. But I tell women that it's important for you to be creative about your fundraise when you're trying to raise funding for your business. So once your business is already a business that is scalable, you already meet all the criteria of scalability, a needed business, and you're actually solving a real problem, then you have to go to the places where money is at, right? So write a list of entrepreneurs, of VCs in Africa, and ask some of the founders within your network to do some intros. So go on TechCrunch, for example, go on Tech Cabal, go on TechPoint. These are some of the publications that carry tech founder stories, and look at some of the people who have invested in some of these companies. So you have an idea of the kinds of products that they're interested in. So some fintechs, some investors are only interested in agribusiness. For example, Sahel Capital, I think that's their name. They're only interested in agribusiness. You know that you cannot, as a fintech founder, you're wasting your time if you send your pitch deck to them. Some VCs are only interested in fintech. Some are sector agnostic. They don't care about whatever business you are, but they only invest in tech founders. Some invest in all kinds of businesses, like Aruba Capital. I think from my understanding of Aruba Capital, they like female founders, number one. Also, they don't mind like manufacturing businesses. A lot of VCs will not necessarily look at businesses who manufacture like real products. So you really, really need to know who is in your industry that is interested in investing in you. And when all is said and done, you go back to your community, go back to friends and family, speak to them. They're the ones that would first believe in what you're doing. So that was what I did. So first, when I was trying to raise, we're a community, and it was difficult for people to understand that I wanted to scale what we're doing or take what we're doing to the next level. We wanted to pivot. So there were different questions that people had, and not everybody wants to give you money. But I went back to my community because I had one, and I said, I'm trying to do this, and if you're interested in investing in us, please reach out to me. And I put a Google link, and I got a list of over 200 people that said they wanted to invest in us. So it was a bit different for me. I didn't go the traditional route of only going to VCs. I went to the community, and then VCs also came. So we have investors, we have retail investors, we have angel investors, and we also have VCs who have also backed us. So yes, it's very important for you to know your industries, know the VCs that you want to meet. Also be part of different communities. I get so many emails today inviting me for one founder hangout or VC hangouts or the other. And it's in those spaces that you actually meet, connect, and network with these people. They always say that it's not the time that you need money that you should actually be building those relationships. It's when you don't need them, you build those relationships because you don't want to sound too desperate when you now eventually go. In practice, it's not really like that, because as a founder, it almost seems like you're always desperate, but you're more in control of building those relationships when you still have a little bit more runway. But when you're desperate, people give you all kinds of term sheets just because they can feel it and hear from the tone of your voice that you're desperate. Yeah.
We have a question from Sharon. Sharon says, I'm mostly a hands-on with my project, and when it comes to paperwork and pitching, it becomes hard. Please advise.
I know that you first have to be pitching it by yourself to yourself and get confident. So write it out, write your pitch out, and first get confident in the sentences. So because I was able to practice and practice. So let me give a typical example. When my first entrepreneurship program that I went to was the Startup Bootcamp program, it happened in Senegal. So that was like the accelerator program that I did. And I was the only one out of all the other entrepreneurs who couldn't, I wouldn't say cram, but I couldn't remember all the lines word for word until a day before the actual pitch competition or demo day. Every other person could get their lines word for word. And I was like, God, why is it so hard? I don't want to embarrass my ancestors. It was extremely difficult for me. But I think it comes with, people are just, sometimes pressured. So even though it was very difficult for me, but by demo day, I did my pitch and it went extremely well. Nothing happened to when I was pitching. So I think you have to just practice. It's not magic. It doesn't come to everybody naturally. Other people might have seen me that day of the pitch competition. They wouldn't know how I've suffered for the last 2 weeks, not getting my lines or not getting my pitch right, line by line. And guess what? It's your pitch. Nobody knows your pitch more than you. So if you think that people are judging you and all of that, because it's your business, you can still, everything doesn't have to go word for word or line by line. You can tweak something, you can say something before the other thing, but because you've already written it out, you might feel pressured. But what practice helps you do is that you become more confident in the words that you're saying. And when it's actually time to present it to who needs to hear, you're more confident about your lines. And even when you make a mistake, nobody notices. Right? But if you don't practice, your head keeps telling you, oh, you didn't practice, you're saying rubbish, blah, blah, blah. And then when you start talking, you mumble things up, you eventually go home and cry. So I would say to anybody who is trying to raise funding, practice, practice, practice. Write your pitch down, the problem first, the solution, what you bring to the table, number of customers you had, and why people should invest in you. Very simple elevator pitch. Once you have it, things get a little easier, and people can see that, okay, they're actually customers who are willing to patronize you or your products or your service. Yeah.
Good advice. Now we've got a question from Neldy. Ife, you are an amazing entrepreneur. You've done such amazing work with Herconomy in such a short space of time. It's truly inspiring. What are the key factors to building a community around your business?
So for us, it was a little different because we actually built the community first by actually wanting to provide value and change the lives of people before we now actually pivoted to an actual business. So we didn't create the business first and then get the community. It was the other way around. And it was the community that actually pushed us to actually create a product that could actually serve them. So we already knew that there was a problem, and we just created a solution for the problem that already existed. So I think businesses are different. So for a business like Starbucks created the product first, and then they created a community around the product. Same with the likes of Apple. So Apple has like a cult following. They created the product first, and then people loved it, and then they engage the community. They have different activities, that will bring the customers together. They also take advice from the customers. So the different kinds of flavors that they should come up with, all of that. And the community members know that they are listening because they're engaging them. They're telling them, okay, so we're going to try out this new product. Will you guys give us feedback? Well, they're sending the emails back and forth. They're creating live experiences where customers can come in and come and give live feedback and all of that. So the community feels engaged. They feel like they're a part of your growth, and that way they'll stick around because they see that you actually listen to them, and you're not just creating products you think is good for you. You're actually listening to your customers.
I've got another question, but it doesn't have a name. You've mentioned that you reached out to another founder to get advice about their typical day, but what is your typical day like?
My typical day is crazy. I wake up, look at my calendar just to see, or the day before, I'll have looked at my calendar to see what my next day is like. And then on the day itself, different things happen on that day. So some days, on the days that maybe I have planned, maybe I have a meeting in the morning, I have maybe a stand-up meeting with the team, feel the pulse of the team, go through my emails, respond to emails that are there, speak to other people on my team, like our COO, CTO, or CFO, just to understand the state of things that are happening. Just go through the day, go through my emails, lead different team conversations, look for different new partnerships that, I think will be relevant for Herconomy's growth. On the days where I think I've done every other thing, I start to write different ideas that, come to my head. I'm currently trying to work on a new product for Herconomy. I'm doing that research. I'm trying to make a case for that product and I'm starting to write the different potential what would I call it, customers or businesses that can actually use the products, hear from them if it's something that they'll be interested in before we actually go full on to actually build the product. So just different things that we do on a day-to-day. but I always like I live by my calendar. And for example, on every Friday, I've asked my team to block out 2 hours in the day so that I can have meetings with anybody on the team who is having any issues. So on that day, between 10 and 12, anyone on the team can just book a 15-minute slot on my calendar just to discuss either personal issues or issues that they're facing with the job and all of that. And they know that, it's open to everybody. So there's no conversation of, oh, and this is something that I learned after I had gone through, leading the team and feeling a little distant from the team. So you continue to learn, on the job as you go. Everything doesn't come to you on day one, but as you continue to tweak, as you continue to try to build like an enabling work environment, things become, a little easier for you to deal with on a day-to-day. Yeah, but every day is different. So I wouldn't be able to say, oh, this is what I do every day, Monday to Friday. But every day is dynamic, I would say. But I live by my calendar and I try to work on everything that can move the business, forward.
Is there someone that really inspires you that you look up to?
I would say a lot of I like a lot of the CEOs under the Tony Elimelu group, or I would say UBA group, that they have different arms. So I particularly love two CEOs, Owen Omogiafo, and also this is if we're talking about in Nigeria, Dupe Olushola, because they live authentically. Like they don't necessarily say, oh, I'm a CEO and I'm uptight and every day I'm wearing a suit. I feel like we're very similar with what we're trying to do and how we present ourselves. And modern day leadership is not necessarily hard, like you're hardened and all of that. You're still leading soft and you're also creating impact. So when we looked at the books of, for example, the company that Dupe Olushola leads, she's the CEO of Transcorp Hilton in Abuja. And as at 2020, the books were not looking too good, but she's been able to move it to like millions of dollars in terms of revenue. Same with Owen as well. She was able to transform, Transcorp Group, and their numbers are now like ×4 of what it used to be before. And they're still very humble. They still lead from a place of passion. They're still very approachable. So I think that they really inspire me. But when I think about global leaders that inspire me, I particularly love Serena Williams. I think she's a young leader, and I think that she's building such a phenomenal legacy. She's done what she had to do with tennis. She also has a VC firm that has invested in, I think she said, over 80 companies or so, and 14 of those companies have gone on to become unicorns. So I feel like she's building transformational and transgenerational wealth, not just for her, but for different companies that she's investing in from a very, very early stage. So I think that she really, really inspires me, that she didn't just stop at tennis. She's investing and putting her money in the lives of businesses that can eventually transform the world. So yeah, that's another woman who inspires me. There are also other women, but yeah, I think those are some of the people that really, really inspire me.
So for the last, I think we've got about 30 seconds. I think it would be nice for you to just share a bit of advice that you might have that you want to say.
Yeah, I'll just tell everyone watching, please just do it afraid and support the people around you. Is very, very important because you never know. There was somebody who we supported, who we gave a grant to, I think in 2022. And I think she came second in one of our grants competitions. And today her business is doing so well. Like their numbers are better, way better than our own numbers. And they've come back to actually support the work that we do. They've sponsored some of the projects or initiatives that we work on. So it's very, very important with the little that you have, support people. You never know how it's going to come back. Just try to be there for people, be there for your friends, your family, other founders who are within your ecosystem, and just continue to help. Once your hands are open, more comes to you. So it's important for you to be very, very generous and do what you can to support people around you while doing it afraid. Thank you.
Ife, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for sharing your journey, your knowledge, and your expertise. It's been incredibly insightful at this
Thank you
part.
very much.
Thank you so much. And thank you to everybody who has joined this webinar, whether you're on Zoom or YouTube or LinkedIn. Thank you for taking the time as well. So thank you again. Thank you.